Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It's the end of the week. Okay, so what is on the agenda for today? Welcome to my live, by the way. So, if you've been watching for a while, and by a while, I've been doing this for years, there are a lot of different waivers that are available in the US. And the reason for that is that, if somebody's inadmissible for some reason, the law allows them to essentially submit a whole package which essentially says, I'm sorry, I know I'm inadmissible, but for all these reasons, let me in. Okay. So I'm going to be talking today more specifically about medical waivers and how you can prepare them. So you have a better idea, of what a waiver is needed and what is needed to go in to prepare a medical waiver. And then, of course, after I'm done, talking about this particular subject, I will, of course, go back and answer whatever questions you have. So the way it works is don't wait to answer your questions until I'm done with what I'm saying, because there'll already be several questions and it'll be a while before I can get to you. So ask your questions now. Ask your questions when you get on. Anything related to immigration. Obviously, if you ask me baseball stats, I'm not going to know it. So any immigration related question and we're good to go. And once I'm done with my intro on medical waivers, letting you know what they are and how to prepare them, I'll get back and I'll show you the answer the questions. Okay, so first of all, if you need an intro on medical waivers, I have lots of other videos on that. So just for all intents purposes, I'm going to assume that you've seen or you understand a bit about a medical waiver, and that there's a medical condition that you or someone you want to bring in has. And because of that medical condition, immigration is saying, sorry, you can't come in because you have this or that medical condition. And then you say, well, I've got a waiver. Review this. Forget about the medical condition and let me in. Okay, so first of all, what type of medical conditions make it so that you need a waiver? Okay, well, first things first, there's the obvious ones, the contagious, infectious ones where, if you start coughing, someone's going to get it. Basically, that's it. Okay, that's the first part. We're talking things like tuberculosis, COVID, things like that. And, first you have to understand that if you do have an infectious disease, in that regard, why would you want to be coming into the U.S. with an infectious disease? Okay. And so a lot of reasons people ask for waivers with such an infectious disease is because they cannot get the proper medical diagnosis or help in their own country. Okay. So the question is, will they be able to come to the U.S. to get proper treatment, to become better, and to do it in a manner that's safe, that won't infect other people, okay? And when preparing a medical waiver, of course, you of course have to show the medical condition. You have to have proof of the medical condition itself. You, of course, have to show why it falls under the immigration law that makes it so that you're going to need a waiver. And then you have to show all the hardship that people will suffer if you're not allowed in and so forth. You're qualifying relatives. But with a medical waiver, unlike other types of waivers, one of the most important points is showing that you are going to come in, get treatment, and how you're going to do it safely. And how are you going to show that? Okay? Obviously, if you're standing there with no mask, no anything, and you have an infectious disease, that's not going to help your case, okay? So you need to get medical documentation showing all the protocol that's going to be taken to minimize any effect on anybody else. You're going to also show statistically through medical documentation how little of a transmission might occur based on whatever it is you have. And then you're going to show the chain of how you're going to come in, what you're going to do, how you're going to get the medical treatment, when you're going to not be infectious, how long it's going to take, what exactly is going to be given. I mean, there are a lot of medical documents that are needed to properly do a medical waiver. If you have an infectious disease, you're not going to come in and say, can you please give me a medical waiver because I miss my family and I'm going to wear a mask? Okay, that's not going to work. Okay, they're not going to let anybody in that respect. So that's the first thing. Okay, now what other physical things might you have that would need a waiver? Well, one of them is COVID. Okay, even if you don't have COVID, there's law requiring that you get vaccinated. Okay, and if you can't or won't get vaccinated, there are waivers available for that, but you're going to have to show, for example, there's a religious reason and so forth as to why you won't, and then you'll have to also show that you're going to take precautions so that other people don't get infected. If you come on, for example, with a medical waiver for COVID, and you essentially say it is against your religion or your First Amendment rights or whatever it is that you are claiming in order to get the waiver, but you're doing this without a mask, you're not putting a single thing in there how you're going to protect other people, that waiver is not going to get approved. Okay, because unlike constitutional law, where, for example, certain things occur to citizens where, for whatever reason, their religion doesn't permit them to do things or mandate that they do things, the waiver here is discretionary. And while religion and so forth or political beliefs may be a valid basis to begin the waiver, it's certainly not going to be a valid basis to approve the waiver unless you can show that you're going to take the necessary precautions to not infect other people. Okay, so that's it for that. Now, are there other medical conditions that require a waiver that are not infectious? The answer is yes. There are mental/emotional waivers that do, in fact, require a waiver. Okay, if they believe that somebody is mentally unstable and dangerous for whatever reason, they can make it so that they are inadmissible under that medical ground and will need a waiver. Okay, so let's say someone's schizophrenic and they've shown a history of violence. They're very much likely going to need a waiver. And it gets back to the same thing. What do you show? How do you do it? Okay. And again, a lot of medical documentation from psychiatrists, psychologists, from doctors, all kinds of things that would show, one, that you're going to receive the treatment when you come into the U.S. You're going to attach documentation to showing how the treatment's going to help. I mean, you may have, for example, schizophrenia, but if you take the medication, it could very well mean that you will not have the symptoms associated with, for example, the violence or whatever it is that caused, the situations in the past to occur. You might also be going to medical studies. You might be going to programs. There's all kinds of ways of showing why you should come into the U.S. And again, it can't just be piecemeal stuff you put together. Okay, the waiver has to be very nicely packaged. When my firm does it, it's the legal brief, declarations, affidavits, supporting evidence from the doctor, supporting evidence from the psychiatrist, from the psychologist, all that. And also showing that there's a good support group, okay, who will assist in helping. Obviously, if somebody comes in with this and they do everything in the waiver, but they do not put a single thing about what family member is going to help them, how they're going to get to all their medical appointments, how they're going to make sure they take their medication, how they're going to make sure that they do not become violent again or whatever it is that's making them inadmissible, it's going to be denied. Okay, so there does need to be a nice support group, okay? And that will help with getting the waiver approved. Now, there is one thing a lot of times that I put in the beginning of a medical waiver, okay? Because a lot of times the officers will say, well, you're inadmissible under Section 212 because you have a medical condition and therefore you're inadmissible. And then a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take that as the holy gospel and they will have to go to, attorney, prepare the waiver and everything else. Well, a lot of times, believe it or not, the immigration officers are wrong. Okay, sometimes they will claim that something makes somebody inadmissible for medical reasons, but in fact they're not. Okay, so a lot of times the first part of the waiver that I put is that they don't need a medical waiver, that they are not inadmissible. And then, of course, you can't just say that. You have to back it up with the law and the facts and the cases and the regulations and so forth. I mean, to give you an example, years ago, somebody was trying to come in, a client I had, and they had AIDS, okay? And the officer flat out said, well, no, you have AIDS. You cannot come in. You're inadmissible. Well, there was law and there were cases and there were regulations on the books that specifically stated that when someone comes in and they're HIV positive, they are not inadmissible, period. Okay? So, naturally, I did the brief and got him in. And then, of course, the superior saw that the officer was wrong and then they were allowed in. But sometimes you have to fight like that. Okay? Sometimes you have to fight in order to show why you don't need a waiver. Okay, it's not just a matter of saying, I don't think I need a waiver because I don't have that, or that's not transmissible, or you're wrong. It has to be prepared in a manner that both tactfully lets them know why it's wrong, and that tells them that they are making an incorrect legal assessment of inadmissibility. Okay? So basically that's my spiel on preparing medical waivers and when you need them and what type of conditions. So if you're coming in with any medical condition, whether it be physical or mental or a combination of both, and you're not sure if you're inadmissible or not, what my firm does is we analyze it first, okay? So first, of course, we want to try to show that it doesn't make you inadmissible. So even if you admit you have it and everything else, it doesn't make you. But then we want to show if it does, that you have the support group, you have the evidence, you have the medical documentation to show why you should come in, why it should be waived, and so forth. And if it is waived, then the door's been opened and you're allowed to come in. Okay? So that's how that works. So let me scroll back to the beginning of everybody joining here and see if we have any questions. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing well. We have, since we're on the subject of waivers, I am just scrolling here as I talk. Since we're on the subject of waivers, there's criminal waivers, fraud waivers, medical waivers, public charge waivers, asylum-related waivers, VAWA-related waivers. I mean, waivers consist of a whole practice of immigration law, okay? So if you go into a lawyer's office to help you with a waiver and you say, well, so what waivers have you done? And the lawyer says, well, you're going to be my first. You might want to be, hesitant. Okay, you want to get someone who knows what they're doing. All right, so I'm scrolling down here. Just a sec. Okay. Well, we have lots of people that joined, but it doesn't look like we have a ton of whoops. Oh, shoot. How did that happen? Okay. Sorry. I don't know how that happened. Sometimes I just press it and things happen. If you have a question, just send me the questions. It's a little hard to do it otherwise. Okay, 1 second. Wow, I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Lots of people. Okay, here's a question. I entered with a green card, but once I got home, I checked online. The I-94 is showing that I entered on a B2. Okay, well, first things first. The I-94, you're not going to have an I-94 if you enter on a green card. That's a fact. Okay, the I-94 will show non-immigrant visas. Okay, so if you have an I-94 and it shows you entered on a B2 and you really entered on a green card, obviously that's wrong. Okay, because you shouldn't even be showing the I-94. So it's a little concerning that would happen because immigration is going to think, which this is the reality, they're going to think you're lying about everything. Okay, they're going to think you don't have the green card. They're going to think you made it up or you have a fake green card or whatever. So the first question that I would ask is, if you entered on the green card, why did you check online about an I-94? Because people who enter on green cards don't do that. Okay, they simply do not do that. That's like entering with a U.S. passport and then checking to see what the status of your green card is. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. So that's what I first would need to know, is why are you checking online the I-94 if you entered with a green card? Okay, and then I would need to know how you got your green card, when you got it, how long you were gone. Sometimes people are gone for a long time. And if you were gone for a long time, you might have had a discussion with the officer who said, well, you've been gone for a year and a half. We can't let you in on your green card because it's no longer valid. But if you want to waive and give up your green card, we can allow you as a visitor. And you might have said yes. And you might have signed something giving up your lawful permanent resident status. And then when you come in the country, you look and sure enough, it shows that you entered on a B2, even though you say you have a green card, because you didn't get in on the green card because you were gone more than a year, and that means you weren't supposed to be allowed on the green card. So I'd need to know the facts of your case to know what can be done. It is incredibly unlikely that you entered on a green card with no issues and magically you now have an I-94 showing you entered as a visitor. Okay, that just wouldn't happen out of the blue. So I'd need to see what the facts are. Okay. Okay, well, and then the same one, you say you entered on the green card through adjustment. It was 10 years and you went out for only 18 days and you were asked nothing. Okay, well, again, I ask you, if you entered and there were no issues, why would you look online at an I-94 to see what it says? Okay, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that if you didn't think there was a problem? Okay. All right, so let me make sure I didn't skip any questions here because we have to. All right, well, anyways, that will most likely conclude the live for today. If any of you want to send me hearts before I go, it's always nice seeing those numbers go up. I'd appreciate that. So I hope everybody has a good weekend coming up. If any of you have, oh, thanks. If any of you have any questions later on immigration law, whatever it is, go ahead and ask me. I've said this before, but there is no question you could ask me on immigration law that I won't know. Okay. I mean, I'm not being arrogant, but after 3 decades of working on it, it is what it is. That's why I can help people. So, go ahead and email me or whatever. Let me just make sure in the end here we have no other ones here. Just a second. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for today. Everybody enjoy the weekend, and I'll be back next week with more interesting live subjects. Okay.